So let's talk about this and how to get set for hinging from the waist. And what Ray's gonna do first is pull his shoulders down and back. We're gonna get nice and tight, keep that core nice and tight. We're gonna hinge from the waist, sending our hips straight back. So there's very little bend in the knee at this moment. It is all coming from the waist. If you also notice, there is no bend anywhere throughout his spine. So he's keeping his back nice and flat and good tension all the way from his head out through his tailbone.
Today we're building on what we talked about yesterday with a hip hinge. This is actually one of my favorite drills to use if someone doesn't quite get the kettlebell swing. Here's what it looks like. Nicole has a band set up on the pole here, and it's about middle of her shin. She's gonna step over it and she's gonna walk out towards me. Then she's gonna go into a hip hinge position with her feet flat to the ground, and then she's gonna squeeze her butt and straighten her legs so that she's in a neutral position. A couple things we wanna make sure of. We wanna keep the shins vertical the entire time. She's just hinging back and sending her hips towards the wall. And then when she comes through, she's squeezing her butt and squeezing her quads and her abs together, so quads, butts, guts, to create a nice neutral position at the top. Again, this is one of my favorite drills to use with athletes who struggle with a hinge position. It really helps them to feel what it's supposed to be like to get their hips back and then open the hips and using their legs to straighten and finish to extension.
Today we're going to be talking about the banded good morning. So Ray's going to take his band, he's going to bring his feet so that they are right on top of the band. We want the middle of our foot to be right over the top when we go to get set. He's going to get down and bring that band so that it's across his back and the backs of his shoulders. He's gonna stand up. He's holding the sides of the band here so it doesn't go anywhere, but we wanna keep it off of our neck. We're gonna pull shoulders back, and from here we're going to keep that core nice and tight while we hinge at the waist. So back stays nice and flat. The goal here is to get our torso as close to parallel to the ground as possible with as straight of legs as possible. If you need a slight bend in the knee, it's totally okay. But from here, we're gonna drive up through the heel, squeeze the glutes, and keep that core tight. Let's see one more. We're hinging from the waist, keeping that back nice and flat, and we're gonna drive up through the heel, squeezing the glutes, keeping everything nice and tight. We're gonna be talking about the Russian kettlebell swing. So Ray's gonna go ahead and hinge from the waist. He's gonna make sure shoulders are down and back. We've got good tension throughout our spine. We're gonna go ahead and grab the kettlebell, and from here, use our lats, pull that kettlebell back in, and drive up through the heel. We're gonna extend at the knee, open the hip nice and quick, squeeze those glutes. The kettlebell is gonna come up just in between shoulder and eye level. Another thing I wanna mention, as that kettlebell is coming up, what you should notice about Ray's position is that he's not throwing his hips through and he's not losing engagement through the core. He's keeping a nice tight hollow bracing throughout his midline. So that means he's keeping his belly button pulled in, slight tuck of the tailbone as that kettlebell rises, and keeping his ribs pulled under. So you should never feel this in your back at all, really. It should all be your glutes and your hamstrings should be what is screaming at you way long before your back. Real quick, so we're gonna touch on a few common faults that happen in the kettlebell swing. So one, it being initiated with the knee. So doing more of a squat rather than a hip hinge. We want to make sure that we're hinging at the waist, so our torso is actually going to be moving down closer to the floor rather than our hips. Another common fault is rising up on the toe instead of driving through the heel. When we do this, we're losing out on a ton of power that we could be recruiting from our posterior chain. So we want to keep those feet flat on the floor, drive up through our heel, squeezing the glutes, using the hamstrings to drive and power that kettlebell upward.